All right, I promise you an update about photography, and especially mobile photography, which I do with my phone a lot. But I told you that the camera I carry around with if I'm on the go for street photography and the stuff I have at home on my walls is the Ricoh GR III. And there's a reason why I carry this camera, which looks like a small point-and-shoot camera and nothing fancy. But this camera is actually one focal length. I think it's a 28mm, which makes it with the sensor like something equivalent to a 35mm, but don't quote me on that one. For me, it's the perfect size. So if I want to zoom, I need to use my Puma Zoom today and run to the object. But what's important, this camera has a incredible mode when it comes to black and white. I don't shoot directly in black and white, but I shoot in RAW. I'll show you later how I edit. And it's really fast in autofocus and really good in details. So for street photography and stuff like that, it's not even close to compare it with a smartphone. Your limits of a smartphone are that sensor, which is like obviously limited in physical size. I don't have my smartphone on me, but there's a video we made about it. So you have a better sensor here, much more quality, and it's not about the megapixels. You know that already. It's about what you have in the camera in terms of physical size, optical quality. And the quality of these images from a lot of street photographers comes even close to what you see with smaller Leicas or Sony cameras. It's not a Leica, of course, it's only 800 to $1,000 depending on which model you choose. Yeah, let's walk a little bit through how I use it and what the settings are, because I played around with it for a couple of weeks. Okay, so first of all, because it's so small, I use a sleeve with it, which I usually hate, but in this case it makes sense. And I use the one from Peak Design because you can easily switch it off and like take the camera like this, and I can hook it onto my Peak Design backpack or to the sleeve. Here it's not the smallest one in size, but it has a good fit. It doesn't slip out too easy, and it's more important like to have something, if it falls, that you make sure it's safe. I always have it, of course, in manual mode, and then you have actually the buttons here for shutter speed. If you want street photography, you want to have fast shutter, for example, like to have sharpness in every moving object. The autofocus is really good. So I use the autofocus because I kind of run and shoot. Then you have the aperture, it goes down to 2.8, and then of course you can make it smaller, smaller, smaller. Let's say if I want to take a picture of Jan, we're outside, ISO is the ring as on every other camera. So if this is not a fast moving object here, so I can go down in shutter. Let's keep the ISO low when we're outside. Let's look for a scene. This guy passes by here. No, he's turning. Let's turn around. Give you a little bit of depth of field. And this is now quite challenging because you have a bright background. But what I can show you from the weekend, I've seen I was in Berlin and we had motorcyclists demonstrating for whatever reason, I don't know. And I took some images of them passing by really fast. I was using a setting 640 shutter speed, 3.5 aperture, and you can see that it's a touch screen. You can see the detail, the sharpness, and this is the image quality you get out of it, even with all that light. And this is not edited yet, so what we do is we go upstairs and I show you a little bit of editing around that camera. While we go, the question, is it worth it to have a camera like this for dedicated photography? I would say yes, for several reasons. Number one is it's easy to carry it around. It's not too big. The quality is so much higher that you are able to print photography in a large scale. I do that with the smartphone photography as well, but on the large print, you definitely see the limitations of smartphones. The details, the sharpness, the focus. There are a lot of things that you don't get right with a smartphone. The big advantage of a smartphone is it's the camera you usually carry with you. So if this is too big for you and you want to make nice photography, I would not consider any other camera, because the bigger the camera, the less you will carry it around. Trust me, and I carry a lot of cameras around. So this is the smallest thing I would say in terms of quality and when it comes to minimalistic setup for really good, for example, black and white or macro photography, which this one is really good at. Anything else, I would definitely consider buy a really, really good smartphone if you do it on the go or on vacation. But if you say you want to spend some time and you don't want to be interrupted by your smartphone with all the other stuff and the distractions that are on there, buy a dedicated camera like this one. There's a guy in Hamburg actually called Samuel Street Photography or something. We should link his channel. I watched a lot of videos. He makes a lot of dedicated videos about the GR3 and other Ricoh GRs. It's really worth to watch it. Also, when he shares the details of what he makes in street photography and how he does it. So look it up. Jan finds the link and then we link him here in the channel. I do a lot of stuff on my phone as well, but I would say we do it on the iPad and maybe clean it a little bit. It's the downside of all the touch screens, huh? Alrighty. So I have this neat adapter for USB-C, and luckily the iPad Pro is USB-C capable. I use Lightroom. I also use Snapseed sometimes and VSCO. But I found that Lightroom is quite reliable and it syncs the images to my phone as well. This is one of the images I took. It's raw, so I can change a lot of settings, and this was during, as I said, this bikers moving by, demonstrating for I don't know. And I usually test some of the pre-settings when it comes to black and white. You could do that in the camera, but I like to do it here to see how it looks like and how it changes. And I don't like actually any of these two because the light is so nice. So I could go into contrast, which I would lower a little bit, lighten up the black, making the white a bit lower, and warm up the image a little bit, not too much. Put a little bit of red in there. The dynamic. And let's walk a bit through the settings. And I test around what I like. That's all I do. I test around what I like, put a little bit of grain in it. Let's see how wide I make that one. And then if you touch the screen, you see before and after. And let's walk a little bit through the colors. Let's make the green a bit greener and less yellow. The blue a little bit popping out. And of course this orange spike is the eye catcher in this whole scene. And you could also take selective parts and say, I want to select this area here and mark it, and just say I want, let's say, texture, clarity, and a little bit more light onto this area here. It's a lot of light right now, but that's okay. How about this? It's a bit out of focus. As I said, this camera is doing a good job, but this thing is definitely not for printing. Where is the focus? It's behind there somewhere. So this is definitely something you would do in manual much better, but for now, I guess it's okay. This is a black and white image I did a couple of weeks ago from a friend of mine, and this is the original image. And as you see, there is too much white here, of course, so I could have made it a bit like darker, but this is the black and white editing I did on the image, and you get that with the raw material. And I really like how the rocks pop out, the water a little bit, and him sitting there in the morning having a coffee. And this is the potential the camera has. This was a friend of mine taking a picture from above. Did I do any editing yet on that one? No, not yet. Again, I would experiment with first taking the internal black and white filters to see if, in a very quick way, how it looks for me. And then if something works, I would go to the details. I would try not to do too much to the image if I have the feeling it works, because I think anything you get out of the camera should be what you want to have in the end and not too much editing. On a smartphone, you definitely have a lot of automatic stuff that runs in the background. It makes it look nicer, the colors pop, does a lot of stuff to the image that you don't control yourself, so that you have quickly a nice image. But I still like to focus on the details you can get out of an image. And for example, here you have the clouds as nice details. This works much better in black and white, I would say. And now I would go to the colors, for example, and say, let's set blue and work a little bit through the blue sky here to make it pop. So this is my process, and this is what I really enjoy. As you can see, I was now sucked into the editing, and I just realized, oh, I didn't shoot for a couple of weeks. And sometimes from one weekend I just have one image, sometimes I have more. Really depends on where I am, what I do. To me, it's perfectly fine if it's just 1 or 2 shots out of one weekend. With my kids, I had made 500 pictures one weekend and just took, I think, 10 or 15 out of it. Printed 5 from that weekend. So it's kind of a hobby. It's for relaxing. It's not for distracting and fast. It's for relaxing and making it nice and learning. And I'm still learning. I'm not a pro yet. So that's why I carry this camera quite often with me and try not to forget it. And I hope you guys find that helpful. I really highly recommend the Ricoh GR III. There are also Mark II and I. They're a bit slower in some areas, but this is a good camera for, I would say, quite professional street photography. If you can imagine working with one focal length, then this is your camera. Yes, try it out. And make sure you subscribe and watch another video. And I see you guys next week.